Hello and welcome to another game of Trap Chess. Today we are playing Chaos Chess, and right out of the gate we have a trap activation on the d4 square. A bomb pawn landmine has removed white's pawn. An activation on the first turn lets black fight for the center, much easier. They throw their pawn on the e5 square, and now the center is up for grabs and black has an advantage while going for it. Chess is a turn-based game, and with turn-based games, when you're playing, sometimes you'll notice that you may be a move or two moves behind of making a game-winning move, but you can't quite do it because your opponent is forcing you to do the things they want. A trap activating on your opponent lets you get that move ahead, and here we have another one where white has lost their bishop on the d2 square. And here comes Mugsy for a surprise appearance. Hi Mugsy. Chess is a game of war, and Mugsy brought her kill clause. Don't let her appearance fool you, she is very dangerous to slow-moving insects. White's knight is pinned on the c3 square. It can't move because then the king on the e1 square would be taken by the bishop on the b4 square. Black opts to take the knight, and now the only way white can take back is with their pawn on the b2 square to the c3 square. Pawns that are doubled up, as you can see here, can't protect each other as well. Black opts to take the pawn on the c3 square, and white does have a move here. They move their queen up to the g7 square, threatening the rook on h8. The h8 rook can now be moved to the f8 square to protect it, but then white can go to the e5 square and fork the knight on the c3 square and the king on the e8 square. This forces black to move their queen to the e7 square. Now white can't move their queen to take the knight because their king would be taken, so they've pinned the queen. White opts to take the queen and force black to take it with their king. Now black won't be able to castle for the rest of the game. Unfortunately, it looks as though white is not doing that well this game due to the traps, and here comes another one. Both of their bishops have been lost to bishop landmines now. White has lost the ability to go diagonal. White has been beat up this game by landmines, and here's another one on the g3 square. They lose their pawn as they're trying to develop, and now black is finally hit with their first landmine. White has still lost 7 more points to landmines. Make that 10 more points, they lose their knight on the f3 square now when they try to bring it out to develop. They're down to 2 rooks, 4 pawns, and a king, whereas black still has 2 knights, a bishop, and 1 more pawn. White is opting to use their king now as their weapon of choice, but black is just going to run around with their knight, check the king, and add some protection while developing their pieces. Now their knight is in a commanding spot in the center of the board, and they have their other knight backing it up, and white can't do anything to remove that knight now. They could try moving their pawn up from f2, but with so few pieces left, it's going to be difficult for white to come back and actually put any type of pressure on black that black can't get out of pretty easily. There's a big threat of white being forked by black's knights, especially since the rooks and the king are very close together. If white isn't careful, they could lose a rook and only get back a knight in exchange for it. Knights are only worth 3 points where rooks are worth 5, so any type of trade for a rook and a knight for white wouldn't be in their best interest. Pieces are power in chess, so if white is looking to make any trades, they must be hoping that black is going to lose pieces to landmines, which happens here as black loses a rook on the g2 square to a bomb rook landmine, and then white opts to trade 1 rook for 2 knights. That's an interesting play, but maybe they're hoping black will lose their other rook to a landmine. If they do, that'll shift the tide of this game. If the tide shifts too much, please remember to get to higher ground for safety. Black is beginning to push their pawns on the left side. Now, one thing to remember about pawns is that there are 16 bomb pawn landmines hidden in the board at random. That makes it more difficult to get a pawn across the board to promote it, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. White opts here to start attacking the pawns on the left side using their king, and black ignores it and brings their rook down to start wiping out white's pawns. For a bomb pawn to activate, a pawn has to land on it. Black taking out white's pawns is a little bit of insurance just in case there isn't a bomb pawn randomly laid in the files where white would move their pawns up. White bringing their king closer to black's side may prove to be an error in the long run though, as white may be cornering themselves near the pawns that can move diagonally. Black will also be able to protect their pawns very easily using their rook. Several games of chaos chess have been played on the channel now. It's cool to see how the random placements of landmines lead to different quantities of traps being activated. The random placements and the different quantities of landmines lead to new board positions quite frequently. It really spices up the game because as early as one turn in, you may have a new board position that you have to think through. When I was younger, I played a lot of chess, but eventually I started to get bored because it's a lot of the same patterns in the beginning of the game, and I didn't have fun until the middle to the end of the game. That's when I really had to start thinking about ways to win, especially when I had a strong opponent I was playing against. But now, with trap chess, the traps allow you to get those new board positions and to bring the fun that you experience in the middle and the end of the game into the beginning of the game as well. Black has lost another piece to a landmine, and then white loses their rook to a landmine. Without that rook, white won't really have a way to prevent black from forcing their king into the corner and checkmating them with their king and their rook. We have seen last-second trap activations in the past, but it doesn't look very good right now for white. A checkmate is imminent. Black only has to wait for white to move their king back to the a7 square, and then when they put their rook on the a5 square, that will be checkmate. Here it comes. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share to help make trap chess a reality.